When you put your heart and soul into creating something, you want it to make an impact, to endure, to express something. What does it take to get there? I'm Questlove, and this is Quest for Craft, my collaboration with the makers of the Ballerina Single Malt Scotch Whiskey. A deep dive into the obsessive, never-ending, whatever-it-takes journey to create something extraordinary. Is there a template for creating something great? Is achievement about fitting into an established tradition or expressing yourself in the moment? When something goes against the plan, is it a mistake or a revelation? As a ballet dancer whose unconventional background is matched by her remarkable talent, Misty Copeland has dealt with these issues most of her life. We sat down together to explore the relationship between craft and perfection. I lived in a household where perfect practice makes perfect. So, in your line of work, what is your journey to perfection?
Well, that phrase, practice makes perfect. I had a teacher that would just say to me, practice makes permanent. So it's really about what that practice is. I feel like I have a very interesting relationship with that word perfection, especially as a ballerina. That word is so connected to what we do. We're expected to be this perfect ideal, the ballerina doll you see in a music box, especially as a Black woman and as a ballerina. There's so much pressure put on you to fit into a certain mold. That word feels almost negative to me.
It sounds like...
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And to me, it's about being the best that I can be, creating, a mold that I fit into for myself. And I think that's something that has been difficult for the ballet world to kind of grapple with me being in it, because I feel like I've never followed anyone else's path.
So when I was a kid with music, I go to the school, and of course they have the big shiny drum set over there. So you're already like, it's my turn. And they're like, no, you're going to put those over. I'm like, those are tap shoes.
Yeah.
Really? Well, it's actually cool.
I was not expecting that.
They thought my kick and my hi-hat foot could use better rhythm coordination. So it wasn't until I was like 4 years into it that I finally got on a drum set. What was the process when you first started?
It feels the opposite, I feel like, of what you experienced, where I didn't know what ballet was, but it wasn't until I was discovered at a Boys and Girls Club. I took my first ballet class on a basketball court when I was 13 years old. And the teacher...
You started at 13?
Yes.
That's not typical, is it?
Right. No, it's not typical.
Yeah, I was about to say, at my school, they were starting at like 4 and 5.
Yes, that's typical. So at 13, I was brought into the local ballet studio on a full scholarship. And instead of, being told, like, in order to get into these point shoes, that's the goal, you have to do this, this, and this. Instead, it was like, if you come to this ballet school, like, we're going to give you these point shoes. Like, it was like bribing me to come to the school, because I was so introverted. It wasn't something that I saw myself doing.
Right.
I'd never heard classical music. I was like, I want to dance to Aretha Franklin and Sade and Mariah Carey. Like, I'm not interested in this classical thing.
Really?
So my path, I feel like I took all this life experience that a lot of people that step into ballet maybe don't have, like, coming from, and I don't want to stereotype, but it kind of is this way in classical dance. It's mostly white. You come from, upper class family with money, and that's not where I came from. I'm one of 6 children. We were living in a motel at the time when I started dancing. I just never had the ideal path of getting to that place. So
when you're younger, in your mind, are you thinking that if I perfect this, then the rest of my life will sort of fall in line? Or
my life outside of ballet was extremely chaotic. I mean, it was constantly moving. It was always changing schools. My mom married like 4 times. It was just a lot of chaos. And so just being in the studio or being on stage was like the opposite of what I'd ever experienced. So it was like a time of peace and beauty and like contentment. So I never looked at it
begrudgingly,
like this, or this high pressure.
Oh,
it was
wow.
like the opposite. I was so tense in my everyday life, not fitting in school or just being extremely introverted, not feeling I had a voice. And ballet was the opposite. So I feel like it allowed me to progress really quickly because I felt so safe in the studio.
People often say that with ballet, it's more about the dance than the dancer. Is there room for self-expression and sort of coloring outside of the lines?
I think there absolutely is room for self-expression. You can take this classical repertoire, you can take these ballets that were created in the 1800s, and it's the experiences that you have that make you the artist you are, that makes it come across different. Your life experiences and the way you interpret a character can completely change the way it looks. Again, growing up and listening to a different type of music than a lot of my peers, I feel like I hear music differently. I hear classical music differently, and the interpretation in my movement looks different, even if I'm doing the same steps as the people next to me.
So, I have a perfect story about how to be imperfect. The first time I met Jay Dilla, I ignored him. Literally, I looked the other way. I didn't know who he was yet. As far as I knew, he was a producer named JD who was working with the hip-hop group The Pharcyde. About a month later, the Roots were opening for The Pharcyde, and on my way to the parking lot after our set, I heard these vibrations coming from the back of the club. It was The Pharcyde set. Amidst the rest of the noise, I heard this crazy discrepancy in the kick drum, almost like someone drunk was playing. I rushed back into the club to hear more. The rhythm was ragged with loose ends, the kind of thing I would have dismissed as flawed before then. But suddenly, I realized was light years ahead of where I was. This was what they did with JD. In that moment, I had the same reaction as I always do with anything truly radical. First, I was paralyzed, uncertain how to feel, and then the epiphany came. A drummer didn't have to be a metronome. Even more, a drummer shouldn't be a metronome. The trick was to locate and liberate the human element. That epiphany spread. When I started working with chefs for food salons and cookbooks, I found out that they were less concerned with executing the exact recipes and more concerned with feel. What mattered to them was not perfection, but putting the human stamp on things. The same was true when I started talking to fashion designers, to writers, to comedians. A high degree of technical ability mattered, but what mattered more was reaching that point and letting yourself explore. That thinking also opened up emotional avenues and spiritual ones. As beings, our goal is not to seek perfection, but to embrace our own imperfections. Years ago, when I knew far less, Jay Dilla opened that door so I can walk through it. The first time that you were confronted with a situation where you might wanted to add a little flavor. I hate and love the fact that we still have to talk in code speak just to not rock the boat. No, but I mean, the first time that you were faced with the challenge of, oh man, I would do it like this or whatever. Like how did you approach it? Like, or do you approach the company and say, you know?
No. You don't say
You just do it live. See, but that's the thing. Every movie I see when dancing is involved, is someone's like, just do it. And you go solo. And the person's the only else. I didn't do that. So,
well, you know, for me, it's like you have to feel it out. You got to feel it out.
Okay. Would you test it at least in dress rehearsal? Or you're going to wait for that one night where... Because I know to be a revolutionary is to be a disruptor, and oftentimes you only get one chance to disrupt it.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think my last performance of Swan Lake, we were talking about, I've been on stage in 3 years performing, and the last performance I had, I kind of went off script and did something that I felt was right for the character. And in the third act, after the Black Swan does the pas de deux and her variation, then it's the coda, and it's the this moment that everyone comes to the ballet for. It's the 32 fouettes that the ballerina does, which is very technically difficult.
Right.
You're in like the third hour of the ballet and you're exhausted. You still have another act to go.
All right. So this is the part that everyone's waiting for.
Yes.
This is the land of the free.
Everyone's waiting for
right. When you're doing the national anthem, are you going to hit the land of the free part? I get it.
And there's so much pressure around it and expectation that I feel like we've lost what the movement is for. And this is the moment where, the black swan is trying to convince the prince that she is the white swan.
Mm-hmm.
She's tricking him. And it's her last moment to kind of spin him into this dizzy trance and get him to swear his undying love for her. So I feel like we've lost the story behind that movement. So instead, I came from the side of the wing just to come out center stage and prepare and do these fouettes repetitive for 32 times. I came from downstage left, and I did with a manege of turns. So it's like PK turns where I'm traveling, and it's kind of like in circles and spinning all the way around. I feel like it was fulfilling a purpose for the story rather than being content and doing the same thing that is expected and that everyone's judged for. If you do it wrong,
they're counting.
They're counting.
Have you ever missed a spin?
Yes,
and came
they're counting.
Under, like, you only did 27.
Exactly. Or you didn't stay right on center and you moved a little this way or this way.
The night I see it, I just want you to do one and then walk. Sorry.
But I mean, even my partner was like thrown off. But I'm like, that's what it's supposed to be. You're not supposed to know what's going to happen.
All right.
And so, yeah.
Wow. Now I got to see this. Can dance and improvisation be compared to whiskey? Maybe. If Balvenie malt master David Stewart were merely interested in emulating tradition, he wouldn't have undertaken an experiment in 1982 when he took stocks of a perfectly good 12-year-old whiskey and put them in sherry barrels to age even more. The result could have been a mistake, a colossal waste of time. But instead, Stewart ended up with the Scotch whiskey equivalent of a game-changing album, blowing people's minds with flavors they never tasted in whiskey before. Stewart's technique, called cask finishing, has become standard operating procedure for whiskey makers exploring new ideas instead of just creating their versions of old ones. In whiskey, like other arts, this willingness to think beyond accepted notions of perfection opens doors for creative minds to share their visions and expand the craft. So since the taboo term is perfection, if ballet is not about perfection, what is it indeed about? And what can other creatives watching you right now learn from that? Because I'm a guy that actually likes mistakes.
I agree. I feel the same way.
Okay.
I feel like it's about self-expression. Again, it's about storytelling, and I feel like what someone could take away from being in the theater and watching a performance is what it is to give of yourself completely, to be in the present moment for 2-3 hours at a time, however long a ballet is, and completely commit yourself to something. And I feel like I can look at other athletics or other art forms and see that similarity. I look at a Stephen Curry or a Klay Thompson, and it's like when they're out there, they're fully committed in that moment. I think there's something so beautiful and admirable about being able to be that present and give of yourself to your craft. And so I know a lot of people would disagree. And again, that perfection is so connected to ballet. But for me, it's about self-expression.
Are mistakes allowed? I don't know what a mistake is in ballet half the time. Is it just that someone in the audience is watching you, knows what you're supposed to do, and you do something else? Or
I mean, it could even be something, as simple as falling. That would be considered a mistake, which, no one's ever planning to fall, so it's.
But you could turn into I meant to do that moment.
That to me is the beauty in it, and okay. Like you were saying, like I really enjoy those moments. I think that I do.
You've fallen before?
Oh yeah, a lot.
And owned it.
Yes,
nice.
I feel like it's a moment to, like those are the moments that challenge us, that test our training. Can you get up and can you get the audience back on track? Can you prove to them that, you should be out there doing this? Like I feel like fueled by moments like that where it challenges
So you have to show
me.
a struggle so that we can cheer for you. And
I don't have to, but if it happens, then, but I think there's something so beautiful about live theater and that you have those moments where mistakes are made and it's about recovering and responding. And I think that's the self-expression. It's being present. It's being like alive and in the moment. Mistakes are bound to happen. And it's about how you recover. And I think that there's something so beautiful about that. And I enjoy having the opportunity to do that.
Love it. I'm excited for you.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Misty Copeland. Appreciate it. Thank you.
The whole idea of perfection as something that can't be measured in terms of right or wrong feels like a dead end, a misunderstanding of the possibilities of creativity. Craft isn't about fulfilling an order. It's about applying your talents, your experience, your heart, your soul into your work. That's when you leave your impression on the world.